You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds, the owner of Summit Properties Northwest and Reynolds & Klein Appraisal, and your host of this episode of the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. And if you missed yesterday's podcast, we are doing a daily podcast Monday through Friday while everybody in the state of Washington is in the social isolation. So as long as we are kind of not together, not able to really go out, not able to go to the gym, not able to go to work, whatever, we've committed to doing a daily podcast. And one of the reasons for that is it's been really super evident that there's been no real leadership with the coronavirus outbreak. Mayors have kind of said their own thing, governors have said their own thing, and the federal government has said their own thing. There hasn't been a consistent, hey, here's how we're going to do things. So as the owner of two companies with, I think we've got 110 employees, not employees, but independent contractors, real estate brokers, and appraisers, I am doing what I consider to be the thing I can do best, which is just basically give out the information that's out there. Hey, here's what you can expect. Here's what we're going through. Here's how we're handling this in a super difficult time for a lot of people, especially people with kids. I keep reading in all my research, this is a brutal time to try and be working from home and have kids because they're bored. They want to go to school. They want to do stuff. And that's not where we're at right now. So in this episode of the Seattle Real Estate Podcast, I am going to kind of look into when I think this will start to taper. Not necessarily the virus, but the hysteria that's going on out there. When is this going to not be over? Because I think the impacts are going to be with us for a super long time. But when is the major hysteria, and when can we start to look forward to going back to normal? And I know we're just at the beginning. We're at the onset of it here in the state of Washington. But since we are less than 9 miles away, and I point that way because that way is Kirkland, Washington, and that's where the epicenter of the coronavirus started here in the U.S., we have kind of a different perspective here because things are happening to us here that haven't necessarily happened across the United States. So we're kind of on the front end of things, and I'm going to be sharing with you my experiences, my thoughts, as we go through these daily podcasts and give you guys a little bit of information of what I see going on out there. And in the same time, we are still doing business. Summit Properties Northwest is still selling homes. Differently, yes, but we're still selling homes. And on the appraisal end of things, we are wildly busy because interest rates are so low. So if I could hire another dozen appraisers right now, I would, but that's not a reality because everybody's super busy. Nobody wants to change jobs, and that's just kind of where we're at. So how long do we have to be in the situation we are now where we're basically socially isolating ourselves except for emergencies and to go to the store? If you're on the road right now anywhere in Seattle, it is super light out there. I just got back from, I know I've got my water here, but I really went to the gas station to get a Diet Coke because I needed a little pick-me-up. I've been here for a while and kind of working on this podcast, so I needed a little bit of caffeine, and Diet Coke does that. But I wanted to appear healthy, so I got the Fiji. It's not as good, but whatever. So trying to predict when the coronavirus will start to lessen its impact is when we're trying to predict the peak. And one of the quotes I liked about trying to pick the peak of when the coronavirus will start to subside is, it's like asking a fireman when you can move back in, but your house is still on fire. We are just now entering into the time period where the number of cases and the number of deaths are becoming exponential in number. And so what we can look at is we can look at what other countries have experienced. And right now, we're basically all working from home. We're trying to maintain 6 feet of personal space, and there's no schools. Everybody's closed schools. Those people who are working can, but a lot of people are not working. And just got through watching, let's see if we've got it up. Yeah, they're breaking down right now. President Trump had an hour-long newscast, and he went through a lot of information. And one of the things that's been being bandied about right now is $1,000 to every U.S. taxpayer. Will millionaires be included? No. But how do they determine that? I don't know. But there's a very real likelihood that we're in a recession right now because of the way the economy has acted to the unknown of the coronavirus. Now, to me, a lot of what's happening is just people's minds are unwinding because we don't have a solid vaccine for the coronavirus, and it's still spreading across the world, and these cases in the media are just being wildly blown out of proportion. And so a lot of this is just a mental game of, all right, this is what's happening, but the reality is it's only impacting basically old people or people who have respiratory issues. I'm not a doctor, and I could be butchering that, but the people who are dying are older people that if they catch the regular flu, they're probably going to die anyway. So it's kind of hardcore and it's kind of harsh, but it's the coronavirus is a very selective virus. And for the rest of us, I think we're going to go through about a month of this self-quarantine and then realize, you know what, we're probably going to make it through this. If we do get this virus, it's going to be kind of like a mild case of the flu. It's not going to be harsh. It's not going to kill me. It's not going to kill my kids. It's not going to kill my pets. Older relatives, yeah, it's a major something to be aware of and to really be considerate of anybody who has health problems. And so you just make plans accordingly. But I think we've got a month of this. Right now we're filming this on filming and shooting or recording audio for the podcast March 17th. I think we have until late in April I'm just going to go right out there and call it. I think we've got between 4 and 6 weeks of this kind of the social quarantining, businesses being up and down. A lot of businesses are still open. There's just nobody out there. I've driven around just to kind of see what's going on. I checked in with my local guy at 7-Eleven. I like 7-Eleven. I like being able to walk in there super quick and get a Fiji or a Diet Coke. And he said, yep, business is down, but it's not crazy slow. And a lot of that has to do with people are at home. People are not at work. They're not in their normal environment. They just need to go somewhere and get out. So they're doing things like that. Other items that, and I'm going to get back to my predictions real quick of a month. We've got a month to maybe 6 weeks to go. But some of the other things that I've come across in the hour-long Trump talk that just happened, $1,000 to individual people. And I think that was from Mitt Romney is who kind of started that. But $1,000 isn't going to go very far if you have bills that are $5,000 a month, $6,000 a month, $7,000 a month. It's people who have good income but no savings that this is really going to impact. And there's also the talk of mortgages being relieved, and then also rent. Maybe some people don't have to pay rent, but then you've got all the landowners, you've got the property owners who are renting out their place, and all of a sudden they're not going to get paid. Are they going to get paid by the government? I don't know. That's just kind of a big mess. One of the statistics that caught my eye that was just recently brought up is Marriott, the enormous hotel chain. They are reporting occupancy of somewhere around 20%. That is not enough to make a hotel chain go. And so they are furloughing, meaning they are temporarily laying off thousands of people. And I think you're going to see that throughout the travel industry. There's just nobody going anywhere. There's nothing happening. All the events are being canceled. I know right now groups of 50 or more are prohibited in the state of Washington. I believe that's correct. President Trump is saying don't do any more than 10 people in a group. So we've got these federal guidelines, and then the states are kind of up to themselves to do what they can. And some of the things that at Summit Properties Northwest and Reynolds and Klein Appraisal, some of the things we're doing is we've basically shut down our office operations where I'm shooting this. I've got one guy that's come in, Darian, and I'm going to have one guy come in each day to run this podcast, and I'll check in with them. But for everybody else, we're basically just doing everything remotely. And we've been set up to do things remotely at Summit Properties Northwest and Reynolds and Klein Appraisal since 2011. So we're on year 9 of being able to do that. My office manager works remotely, and she's in an age demographic where she is concerned about getting the coronavirus. It would not be good. So she's only coming into the office when there's nobody else here, picking up mail, doing that kind of stuff. And then everything else is done on the phone or by video. But there's a lot of people who can't do that. And that's a lot of what we're going to focus on. So $1,000 checks to people aren't going to do a lot, but it's something. And the fact that we might be in a recession already, that's being kind of thrown out there. Moody's, they are a big financial reporting entity. They indicated just recently that there is a $100 billion impact to the economy. $100 billion. That's massive. So that in one fell swoop is just coming in and just taking a massive bite out of what's going on. And then I think that is just for the U.S. economy. Worldwide, it's going to be much bigger because China is so much a part of our supply chain that with them shutting down for as long as they did, we're going to see some numbers that are way, way off. So in my research for how long are we going to be stuck with this, a lot of the answers that came from, and I'm going to butcher these two words, it's epidemiologists and virologists. A lot of their answers to how long this was going to go on is it depends. And things that it depended upon were testing. We don't really have, we haven't really figured out the testing thing yet. We don't have enough kits for testing. We're not really sure of the numbers, so we're just trying to figure out where the numbers are and where they will be. A lot of what people are doing for predictions on how long this is going to go is, and I talked with my social media guy, Darian, this morning about using the stats from China. And the problem with China is that they've basically stopped reporting their cases. So we don't really know what's going on with them. But it took China roughly 2 months from the beginning of its outbreak and a month from the time the gravity of the situation was understood for the country to reach its peak. Now, if we apply that to the state of Washington, January 21st, we had the first case get reported in Washington. And then on February 29th, we had the first death in Washington. And I think it's only been in maybe the last week, so call it the second week of March, where we have really the gravity of the situation has been understood. So when we go into a social distancing ourselves, which has happened in the last week, particularly yesterday, Monday, it happened here in Washington. The governor basically just said, let's shut everything down for at least a couple of weeks. And schools, I know, are shut down until the end of April. So if you apply that from a month from the time of the gravity of the situation, that is mid-April. And schools here are basically closed until, I think, April 24th. So those are some good indicators of, all right, we're going to be in the thick of things for then. We've got another 4 weeks of this. And I think there will be another 2 weeks after that where you've got some tapering. So people are starting to go back to work. People are starting to go back out. They're starting to do things. But right now, we know that we need to basically stay home to mitigate the impact of the spread of the virus. So everybody's kind of doing what they can do. Now, in Great Britain, in the United Kingdom, one of the ways that the government there dealt with the social distancing is they said, no, we're not going to do it right now. We're going to wait, because if you do social distancing, people are going to burn out on that, and then they're not going to do it when they really need to, which is on the other end. When it's starting to come down, then you start to do the social distancing. But that was met with a lot of resistance because people are like, hey, wait a minute, it's on the outbreak. We can catch it now. And I think that's what you're seeing in the United States is people are like, all right, so if we stay at home, we're not going to spread it. That makes sense. It's just difficult to make a living when you're sitting at home. Let's see what else we've got. China has partially lifted its draconian lockdowns in many areas. Schools are back in session and they are reopening, and the makeshift hospitals built in Wuhan at the height of the outbreak, those are being dismantled. So whether you believe China is basically cooking its books and not telling us the real numbers of the outbreak, there are some signs that things have dissipated there. So if you believe from when they had their outbreak to when they had their peak to now, we are probably looking at mid to late April for the same thing to happen here in the United States. We are seeing our numbers exponentially kind of increase across the U.S. I think every state has been hit except for West Virginia. What is up with that? Why don't they have a case of the coronavirus? They don't travel? I don't know. I haven't researched that, but that's always kind of interested me that there's one state out there that continues to not have a case. Maybe minimal population, they just don't go anywhere. I don't know. No international travel. So it's just kind of crazy. And so one of the major things that has been an ongoing concern is that if we do have the kind of numbers that we think we're going to have as far as outbreak goes, yes, there will be a ton of people that will need hospitalization. And the huge concern there is that the healthcare system will not have enough hospital beds to take care of all the people who get sick. And I know numbers are all over the board there, and I don't really know how to assess that, but that is a major concern. Do I think we're going to get to that situation? No, I don't think we are. But then again, I don't really know. I don't know that field. I know real estate. And that's basically what I'm kind of trying to wrap back around to on this podcast is how is this going to impact real estate, impact the real estate markets, and also the economy and everything else that's going on out there. And a lot of this we just don't know. It's, going back to your house is still on fire. How can we tell you when you can move in? And so some parts of the country that got the virus earlier than we did, particularly China, they are recovering, and so I think we will too. And am I 100% confident in my predictions? Absolutely not. I don't know. I'm just gathering research and going on what I do know. Another item that I did research was the SARS virus. That was also a major outbreak, and that came about in the normal flu season. And the SARS virus, it went away, or it dissipated in late April to early May. Is that a coincidence? I don't know. But a lot of the disease specialists say that that's when the flu basically stops as well. You hear in the media tons of commercials for flu medicine during winter, not so much in the summer. And a lot of it has to do with it's a climate issue. When it's colder and people are more indoors and they're around each other a lot, the virus gets spread. So will that happen this year, particularly at the same time? Come April, come May, will the numbers dissipate? Yeah, they certainly could. That is another item that people have thrown out there as, hey, it's a seasonal thing as well. But since we don't have a vaccine for this one, could it be way worse and could it be way more impactful? Yeah, probably. All right. Yesterday, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo criticized the Trump administration's response to the virus after announcing the tri-state area would close gyms, movie theaters, and casinos. Bars and restaurants are also required to provide takeout or delivery services only. One of the things that I've thought about there is, yes, we want to support our local businesses and particularly our local restaurants. My youngest son has basically lost his job at a restaurant because they're closed. So they are not providing employment. But and I want to support local restaurants, and over the next couple of days, and I don't like to do this a ton because it's not good food, typically blows out your nutritional content, but order some takeout from a restaurant that you enjoy. Give them your business locally. But then the other thought is, but then that is kind of going against social distancing. You're having somebody else bring you food to your door. You've got exposure between the restaurant, the delivery person, and you. So I'm sure that everybody's wearing gloves and people are taking great precautions at restaurants. But that's another one of those things where a lot of this just doesn't make 100% sense to me. I wonder if it does to other people out there, or we're just like, yeah, whatever, hungry, got to order food. Let's do some DoorDash, support our people. And the reality is it's just a little bit easier to do that than cook for yourself. Because if you cooked at home, you're probably not going to get the virus if nobody else in your house has it. So those are some things that I'm kind of thinking about. And in California, in the 7 San Francisco Bay Area counties, issued a shelter-in-place order that affects nearly 7 million people. The mandate started on Tuesday, and it lasts for 3 weeks. And that's Tuesday today. The order, the most stringent restriction yet to be imposed over a large jurisdiction, allows people to leave their homes only for necessities like to go to the grocery store or the pharmacy. So, and that is in the San Francisco area. You've got 7 counties, and they're basically on lockdown, California. I'm in a Facebook chat group with, I think it's like 7 or 8 other guys who all randomly have the name Sean Reynolds. They're all younger than I am. But in that chat, we chat about stuff every now and then. And one of the guys is from New Jersey, and they are basically on lockdown, kind of talking about the governor, Andrew Cuomo. They are going super hard on the social distancing just because those areas of the country are so dense with people. And it's Washington, California, and New York that have had the greatest amount of outbreak. And those are the areas that are kind of continually being looked at as, all right, this is what's happening with them. And I think particularly with Washington having the first case in the United States and also the first sets of deaths, we are a kind of an indicator for the rest of the country. And I think things happen faster here in Washington as far as people being exposed to, yeah, this is going on in your own backyard. And it'll take a little bit longer for the hysteria that we've found here to reach the rest of the country. But the rest of the country also has CNN or whatever on full time, and they're able to see what's going on. Whereas those of us here in Washington, we've kind of lived it, and you're kind of walking around going, oh man, I wonder if that person has the coronavirus. Should I be taking this into my house? It could have the coronavirus. Those are things that are going on. And so I think those of us here in Washington we're kind of the guinea pig for how all this will work out. And I think as long as the rest of the country, and including New York and California, if they are watching us and going, well, those people are still alive. Yep, some of them got sick, but nobody really died out of the ordinary. We're all going to make it. And that's what I'm talking about as far as a prediction of into maybe the 3rd week of April, somewhere in there. Is a month from now, I think you'll see a lot of this stuff dissipate. They'll be tired of talking about it. The numbers will start to drop, or they will become consistent with what we know. We'll have a better handle on things. I've read that the, not solution, but the vaccine for this virus is anywhere from 12 months to maybe 2 years away. It's going to take them that long to develop. And so this isn't something that's going to be solved anytime soon, but the mental impact of it will be over at some point here, and I think it's a month out. And that's just based on what I've kind of put together and also my experience. So we've had a number of these viruses in the past. This isn't something new, but for the most part, it's like something you read on page 2 or 3 of, the front page of the news, not the front page of the newspaper, because that's not page 2 or 3, but section A, page 2 or 3, there's a virus outbreak. But this one, it's hit home for a lot of people because it's right here in Washington particularly, and there's no known solution for it, and it's such a quick, it was so quickly passed from people in China to people here in Washington, and then people died from it very soon after that. But I think there's going to be a real shift in the next few weeks of, all right, this is here, it's not killing anybody, we're going to make it. And one of the stats that I came across as I was working through all these numbers was the regular flu kills between 291,000 and 646,000 people a year. That's 291,000 to 646,000 people a year worldwide. So between a little over 250,000 to well over 500,000, more like 2/3 people die from the regular flu every year. And I'm not saying that if you have a loved one who's died from the coronavirus, that's just not a thing. Obviously it is, and I don't want to see anybody die. But the reality is that the numbers we're seeing from the coronavirus are just not all that impactful. They are not worth the amount of effort we're seeing into trying to, cull this problem. I think there's been a little bit of an overreaction, and I think like anything like this, especially something called a pandemic, which means it's basically gone through all the countries. And there's a couple of other criteria that we met a few weeks ago or even a month ago. But this has been a pandemic as of, I want to say, March 11th, something like that. But when we're in a pandemic, I think people's minds just go, oh, this isn't good, we could die, hunker down, do our thing, and everybody starts looking to see what everybody else is doing, and that is basically buying lots of toilet paper. My oldest son hit me up with, Dad, why is toilet paper such a major consideration in this outbreak? And the only thing I can come up with is that it is the only thing that distinguishes us from animals. Otherwise, we are like bears in the woods. So you got to have your toilet paper. And consistently, every time I've been to Costco, I think I've been to Costco twice since the outbreak, it's sold out. And everybody's talking about, oh, there's no toilet paper. And yes, that is a consideration, but you can still live your life without toilet paper and you're going to be okay. You're going to make it. And you don't have to have, a year worth of food. Maybe a few weeks, maybe a month is a good idea. But when you are hoarding all kinds of food, you're taking away from people who probably need it more than you do. And so that's one of the things that I tell my kids and people around me, hey, you don't have to buy that much stuff, just a little bit extra to get you through in case we go through something like a federal shutdown of everything. And I don't think you're going to see that happening because I think we've got a decent handle on what's going on. And a lot of the hysteria, especially in the stock market that you're seeing, is just based on people's fear. So that's why I'm doing this podcast. That's why I'm kind of sharing what I'm sharing. But that is it for this podcast. And look for the next one tomorrow. But again, to kind of summarize and recap, I think you're looking at business as usual like this until mid to late April, maybe into May. And I know I've said a whole bunch of different dates, but it's basically a month out from now. So the beauty of me doing a podcast like this is that you can check what I said on the YouTube video. And if you think I was wildly off, hit me up in the comments. Hit me up in the comments of the video. Let me know how I was wrong, because I want to hear feedback. I'm just taking my best guess. I'm putting myself out there. I'm on camera. I hope everybody out there is doing well and they're getting through this difficult time. It's not easy for everybody, especially the people with kids, especially the people with money problems. This is a huge issue. But I'm going to go ahead and keep doing a daily podcast and just kind of report to you what I see happening on a daily basis, Monday through Friday. So I hope to see you on the next one. Thank you so much for listening and viewing if you're on YouTube, but we will catch you tomorrow. All right. Thanks again. Bye. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.